So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Felix Ferdinand with us. The reason why I have Felix on board with us is because I'm just so inspired by his energy, even during the really, uncertain times with COVID-19 and the quarantine. And that's the reason why I was just inspired that I need to have this interview with him. So, Felix, can you please give an introduction about yourself to the audience?
Sure. So my name is Felix, right? I co-founded the company called Home. So Home is actually a co-living space. What we do is that we empower our community through accessibility over home ownership. So that's what we do. Typically, kind of become the solutions to the community from getting a place to stay, make their life easier by actually smoothen and improve. And in fact, we elevate the community through rental processes as well as kind of like provide solutions to the landlords who can't get their units sold, or developers who can't get their units up in the sense.
Right.
So
So
that's what I do.
cut
Yeah.
off that you cut off that you mentioned about helping homeowners or land rent.
Developers.
Yes.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about that? Helping them to.
So right now, yes, because typically if you look into Southeast Asia where we operate in, or specifically Malaysia, that where we are right now, most of the condominiums out there are actually for personal stays, right? But if you look into service apartments, or even some of the condominiums out there, what they do is that when they invest in, most of them are actually, hey, look, when I bought this property, when I invested in this property many years ago, I'm looking to rent it out. But I find it very difficult to rent it out due to, again, if you look into right now, we do have, in Malaysia alone, we do have like oversupply of the properties. And of all these oversupplies of the property, it may worth up to 40 over billion RM, right? So that's where we fit in. That's where we kind of say, hey, look, you know what? Out of all these high unoccupied units, but again, there are people who are still looking for places to stay. How do we fill in the gap? How do we say, hey, look, despite of all that, we can actually help you to find the tenants. So we come in, we operate for you, manage for you. At the same time, how do we smoothen and create what do we that for tenants to come on board, and we call them members, not tenants, simply because they're more like a community rather than tenants in that sense. That's what I do in general.
Mm-hmm. And so let's just jump into straight up into, because since we're now talking on this topic about how you're actually giving value. So what I
Yes.
understand is basically even within this business that you're in, you're
Yep.
looking at how you can actually serve the wider community and people who wants to have to rent spaces within these buildings.
Exactly. Yep.
But, you're trying to see how you can actually add value to them and also the homeowners. Will I
Yep. Yep. Yes, you're right.
One of the things that I saw on your social media post, which really just inspired the hell out of me, was what you mentioned about service leadership.
Yep.
Okay, you mentioned about the 4Hs. I hope that you can actually expand on that.
Yep.
What touched me the most is how you serve. I'm not sure, is it served through value, or can you please elaborate on this? The 4H.
So again, if you think about it, the 4H that I shared, it's really comprises of hunger, humility, honor, and heart, right? These are the four sets. These are probably the sets of 4H, I call it, in the company, whereby we look to hire, we look to even fire, we even look into promoting or even demoting, right? It's all based on this 4H, right? Just a bit of background. So I grew up in a household whereby my mom is a teacher, and I do not have.
Can I ask very quickly, is
Yep.
4H an actual concept or something you came up with?
It's actually a concept, a values sort of system, again, backed by my faith and someone that I look up to who actually practice those values. And I say, hey, how can I be that sort of someone? How can I be that? How can I be as humble as he is, right? How can I imitate him? How can I sort of like bring that in and live by that words? So again, a bit of context about my background. So I grew up in I would say kind of mid to low kind of mid to low household, whereby, you know, my mom is a teacher, my mom is a lecturer. You know, kind of like, hey, you know what, you gotta come back and sort of do your homework. So she was busy all the time. So at times that she had to take up like 2 jobs or 3 jobs to kind of like feed us, to kind of like take care of me and my siblings. So at that very moment, I knew that, you know, being the elder son, that's where I need to help her to sort of like take care of the family, to take care of my younger sister, right? So that sort of servant leadership is really coming from a background of becoming an elder brother who say, hey, look, you know what? I need to take care of this family. How do I again help my younger sister? How do I again help my mother to sort of take care of the households and, you know, things like that. So I think it's really coming from that. And as I grew up and as I venture into entrepreneurship, or even, you know, get into the world of startups or business or even corporates, right? I realized that there are a lot of different types of leaderships. But again, what resonated with me the most, I would say, servant leadership is really about the ability to go down to the ground and say, hey, look, you know, I serve you, I help you, right? Roll your sleeve, get down to the ground, you know, get your hands dirty, to do the work together with your co-workers, with your colleagues and stuff like that. But again, there's this very famous Japanese phrase, it's called Genshi Genbutsu, which means go out there, go down to the ground and see by yourself. So that's again an element of servant leadership. How do you actually go down to the ground and say, hey, look, can I help you with this? Imagine if you run a restaurant, right? Do you go to the kitchen and say, hey, look, chef, what can I help you with? Or, you know, is there any processes, or if there anything that I can help you with? Or you go down to the floor, whereby you are probably going to help your, you know, your colleagues or the waitress or the waiter or the attendees. You're going like, hey, look, what's going on here? How can we improve our service? How can we improve our food and all that? So it's kind of like really go down to the ground, humble yourself and work, and get things done.
Amazing. And so can we go again? So H, the first one will be the first H will be
So the first H should be humility, right?
unity.
The second will be hunger, and the third one will be honor and heart. Okay, let me elaborate on that, if you may, right? If I may.
Sure.
So again, if you think about hunger,
Mhm.
and you think about hunger in the sense that whereby you come and work, you come and kind of like champion the mission. You kind of need to think about, where's your hunger? Do you feel hungry enough to go and like, you know, go out there and like do your very best, go out there and serve? Do you have that sort of hunger whereby, regardless of your background, regardless of your race, regardless of your status, right? Do you have the hunger? And at the same time, you know, inspire others and say, hey, look, you know what, we're gonna do this. Do we want to do this? Right? It's kind of like a team sports, I would say, or maybe rather more like you know, it's kind of like the teamwork all together, adding together, and be that hungry to win. You know, to other people it may be, you know, this guy is nuts. You know, those exuberant energy that, you know, drive you. But to some of us, it may be kind of normal. But to them, it's kind of insane. Like, why are you so hungry, right? So that leads down to again, when you feel hungry, when you are hunger, right? Again, it leads down to the second H, right, which is humility. But when you are hunger, are you humble enough to say, hey, Jess, I'm sorry, I'm not that smart enough. You know, I made a mistake. Like, again, regardless of your status, you know, you could be the CEO of the company, you probably could be saying sorry to your interns, right? Your interns may be right, right? But at this very moment, you are wrong. But again, are you humble enough to say, hey, I'm sorry? Are you humble enough to get off your high horse, go to the ground and work, you know, roll your sleeves? So it's really that sort of humility. And again, servant leaderships requires tons of humility, right? Again, if you look at my faith, Jesus Christ knelt down and washed your feet, right? So again, to me, it's really that. Are we humble enough to serve? And whenever we think about success, you always think about, can we serve more? It's never about, can we get more? It's really about, can we give more, right? And again, that leads to the third H, which is honor. Right now, Jess, do you honor your words? Do you honor what you say you'll do? Do you honor your colleagues? Do you honor your boss? Do you, you know? So it's really about honoring your words. It's really about honoring each other. It's really about keeping your promises. It's really about honoring. So honoring, it's such a overlooked word that people no longer kind of like look at it anymore, right? Because the world has transformed, has gone through to an extent whereby capitalism takes place. Things are pretty much very transactional. But again, honor is beyond that. Honor is not about possession. Honor is not about being dominant or try to dominate one another, but it's really trying to about to do or to appreciate one another. Do I honor you as a person, right? And that again lead to the last H, which is one of the most vital one that kind of bring all these four H together, which is again your heart. When you serve, what is the posture of your heart? When you humble down yourself, what is the posture of your heart? Do you really humble down yourself, or you act like one, right? I always tell my interns or my colleagues, in fact, I said, look, if you are here to work just to fulfill your criteria of like, hey, look, I'm just being intern. I want to get my cert. I want to complete my degree. That's it. And that's a wrong whole posture of your heart. Because again, posture. Yep. So it's really about the posture of your heart. Whether are you here to learn? Are you here to work? Right? But again, if you come and one of these days, if you come and join us in our company, part of the culture is really serving one another. So it's really about the heart to serve in this case. So in our case, is that how do we serve our community and how do we serve, our landlords or our developers and all that. Yeah.
So where did this idea came from? I mean, I know that you mentioned about the family background, but you see, this is a business climate. Like this is especially now is a very odd business climate, and we are in an Asian country. The service leadership idea, the concept comes from the Western culture, and that's why I was so amazed when I saw this coming from you. And a number of other entrepreneurs that made me felt, wow, this is amazing. This is Malaysia, and we have this. But where did you get this inspiration from? Did it just come out of nowhere, like have you always been like this? Service leadership, adding value. Have you always been like this in business?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't like to, I wouldn't take the credit for all of that, right? To take in that credit by myself, it's unthinkable, right? So again, it varies. So in my case, it's really studying certain admirable CEOs, right? So I know one of the CEOs that I really look up to, running a multi-billion startup company, that who again lead with a notion of servant leadership, and partially again it's through the background of my faith, I would say. And you mentioned about a segment of business. How do we kind of do this in business rather than, again, your personal life and all that? But for us, especially for me, right? I do not compartmentalize like, hey, this is my family, this is my whatever. So I don't have multiple life to begin with. It's really in me already. So it's really about enclaving that sort of values and just be it, and then you apply that in your workspace or in your workplace, right? So to regard that values, those 4H, and again, it's a collective of many observations of multiple admirable CEOs out there that I kind of say, hey, how can I be like him, right? And hey, how can I be so inspirational like him, right? How can I be, how can I lead like him? So it's really about studying them, and and you kind of get that sort of, these are the values that these people practice, these people use, these people sort of cultivate in their companies as well as personal life, and hence why they excel.
Right. Let's just put it this way. You looked at these inspirational figures and you
Yes.
decided that you want to be like that.
Yes. At the same time, it's not just about being like that, but again, it's really about byproduct of their organizations, right? How can they drive people in their organization itself? So it's
Okay.
really about, yep, it's really about coming from that notion of leadership. How
Okay.
can he do so, right?
The next question I have for you is this, right? Because I noticed like how you, the last few times we've met, the first thing that came out from your mouth,
Yes.
I'm so gratitude for my life. I'm so blessed. I'm really so blessed. And I hear that over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And
Yes.
I wonder,
Yes.
have you always been like this? Okay, because that's quite uncommon. Really, it's to me uncommon. And the question that I have is, first of all, have you always been like this? Second of all, is where's that coming from? Your work, uh, faith?
To give you a context out of this, it's really about having that sort of support system, right? To have that sort of like faith that back you up, to again be more conscious and aware of, meaning to say, how do you be in the presence, right? How do you be in the presence and yet kind of look around and think about how far have you come, right? So in essence, in my own personal context, is that, you know, I'm very blessed because again, when it comes from a servant leadership, or those hard to serve, it's really, you know, out of the world feeling whereby you feel very blessed to be able to serve, to be able to give rather than just take in, right? Um, you know, day to day, again, it could be due to whether I'm busy or not. I always feel that feelings of gratitude. I'm feeling very grateful and blessed that despite of the hectic schedule that I have, I'm still able to do things that I love. And when I do the things that I love, I realize that I impact the community, right? It's things that which are much more bigger than yourself, much more bigger than ourselves. So again, when you are aware of that, that's where you take a step back and really think that, hey, look, I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. And when you have amazing, smart people, never say no colleagues who kind of like encourage you, you feel, again, I'm so blessed to have you here. You probably have like tens other options to work somewhere else. And why will you come in and say, hey, look, Felix, you know what? I want to champion this mission with you. I want to like drive this together with you. And because of that, I feel so blessed, so grateful because, you know, what do I do to deserve them? And again, the brothers that I have, and those are fellowship brothers that I have. We in fact, we keep check on one another every week. We'll talk on the phone. If you may, we even pray for each other. We speak life into each other. We encourage each other because we believe that, like, despite of how much or how bad you are, and because we honor you, we speak life into you, right? We encourage you. And yep, so again, you may see that how this 4H really impacted my life, not just in my workspace, but really about how do I again lead my life on a daily basis. And truly, because of all that, I feel extremely grateful. I feel grateful meeting you, right? So it's really about that, and it drives me every day.
You mentioned something that's really way up my alley about doing things that you love.
Sure. Yep.
What is
Yep.
that? In which part of that makes you feel so much joy? What is it?
Um, Look, Jess, I really want to give you a very a textbook reference answer, but I can't, right? Whatever conversation that we have here, it's very personal. In fact, it's very vulnerable, right? We don't hide things from our audience. Really doing things you love. So for me, it's really about first, um, what do you have the heart for, right? So for me, it's really about serving. For me, it's really about giving. For me, it's again trying to bring significance into the community, right? So that's the thing that I love. But again, it doesn't comes from a notion whereby, like, hey, I'm passionate about playing basketball, so I love doing that. When it says, when it means love, love means, it's very out of the world, whereby if you think about love in that nature, is that what will you do, what will you rather do, and take a bullet for, right? Will you do this despite of hardship? Will you do this despite of all the discouragement? Will you do this despite of, of all difficulties that you may face along the way? uh, so you kind of be able to measure what is your temperature of love in this in this context. So in spite of everything, you still love doing that. So yeah, finding the things you love, it's very important. But again, there are tons of different answers to this. There are tons of circular ways to actually put this into words. But that's my definition, right? What you do that brings you life, what you do that, regardless of how difficult it is, that you are willing to clock in, day out, 12 hours, 18 hours a day, right? That's about doing things that you love.
That's amazing. Really amazing. Before I keep forgetting that, okay? This question is,
Sure.
have you always been in this place of faith and gratitude? Have you always been
Good
here?
question. Um, let's put it this way. It's really about a choice in life, right? It's really about choice in life. Let me put it in a context whereby when I feel discouraged, do I choose to feel or to take encouragement, right? Or do I talk to people who speak life into me, who encourage me, right? Do I choose to be courageous in this sense? So again, it's the same thing that you just mentioned, right? Do I always feel gratitude, or do I always feel blessed? Do I always feel this way? To give you a true answer, no. But do I choose to do that? The answer is yes. Do I choose to be in that position? The answer is yes. So it's really about constant taking that or bringing that, or practicing that as a choice. So it's really about a choice of life. So when you think things negatively, do you pivot and think positively instead? Right? So you gotta be aware. Um, so how do I do is that, on, in fact, my personal life, work kind of thing, or even in any compartments of my life, there are things that we may face difficulties. And in fact, after the call, you may receive a call that, hey, look, this discouraged you. But again, in that moment, in that nanoseconds, right, do you say, hey, look, you know what? I don't want to be trapped in that. I don't want to be affected by that. Or even if you do, you have a choice. You have that power within you and say, look, I want to grow beyond this. I want to be bigger than this. I want to choose the latter and say, look, instead of being so discouraged, I want to, pick up a book. I want to read, or listen to music, or even just spend a quiet time by yourself and say, hey, look, you know what? I can do this. I'm still very blessed comparing to a lot of other people, right? I still have a job, you know, and yeah, so those are the things that really brought the best out of me.
So you mentioned about taking quiet time off and spending some time by yourself. Do you do that often as an entrepreneur? Do you find that important?
So I find it very important. So I spend a quiet time almost daily in my life, almost every day. So usually what I'll do is um, half
Wow.
an hour to an hour before I sleep, right? I'll be very aware. I'll reflect on, the things that I do today, for example, and I'll think about how can I do it better, how can I serve better, right? In the context of my work, I always think about how can I bring all colleagues together, how do we build a right culture whereby we love each other, right? Whereby we call each other homies, by the way. So it's really about brothers and sisters coming to a place whereby we serve the mission, right? So it's really about that culture. So again, those quiet time of maybe reading, those quiet time of maybe just self-healing, right? And it's very important because you are going to the war every single day. The moment you wake up, you go to work, you are at war. The moment you pick up or answering a certain phone calls, you are at war. The moment you probably had a bad day, you know, you may have a disagreement with someone, you are at war, right? So again, by end of the day, how do you have a quiet time by yourself, to yourself, and say, hey, look, how can I bring this forward? How can I do this better? What have I done wrong? Do I need to apologize to certain people? Do I need to? So it's really a lot about, it's not soul searching, but it's really about awareness of all that. And say, okay, look, you know what? I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive others. I'm going to pray. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to read and, you know, just let that sort of slide through and say, look, you know what, I'll do better the next day. So that's how I do it. So yeah, so to put it into the right context, do I do it daily? Almost, right? Sometimes when I get too tired, I just fall asleep. But again, if I can, on a daily basis, I'll spend half an hour, 1 hour really reflecting and really just, you know, thinking about how can I do better the next day. And usually, if I may, again, these are the things that I share to my colleagues. One of so many things. I always ask them, don't worry about becoming a hero. Don't worry about be extremely better. Just think about this. Are you 1% better today than yesterday? And if the answer is no, are you 10% better than you are last week? If again the answer is no, you have something to do about it. But if you are 1% better than yesterday, then you know, you are so much better off than any other people already. Or in fact, you are so much better than yourself because it's not a comparison to begin with. So it's again 1% every single day. And that sort of small shift in terms of your paradigm, it's gonna bring a huge difference in your life by end of the year. And you wouldn't believe it. Again, if I may share, I was a completely different person last year than I am today. And I believe if I continuously doing that 1% every single day, then you know, it's not too far off from becoming someone that you would like to be. That's coming from me personally.
Felix, I'm so touched and so blessed by what you say. I
Thank you
just, I
so much.
feel it is, it's
Yes,
something
thank you so much.
I really believe in the
Yeah.
core of my being. So thank you for sharing this. I want to ask, in relation to what we spoke about here, what do you think people need to feel the inspiration that we have, to feel that gratitude that you have? What do you think these people can do?
Just look, if I may again, right? The things that I think instead of what people need, is really about what we can give, right? I think the world or people around us need more love, and they need to feel significant in their life. They need to feel being taken care of, to being loved for, right? So it's really about like be a very positive person. It's really about be a loving person and say, hey, what can I offer you? What can I give you? And more often than not, right? Those are those are offerings that you can give, and that itself is love.
So you're
Yeah.
saying that for people to feel inspiration and gratitude for life, they have to give first.
Yes, it is really coming from ability to give. You know, despite of your shortcomings and all that, with the very little that you have, and with whatever that you have left in the tank, because of the awareness that brings you joy and peace and maybe perhaps awareness of that, like, hey, look, you know what, I feel very blessed and grateful. Coming from that, you know, we talk about this, Jess. It's really about coming from a place whereby you have a living water in your heart that is overflowing. You have no choice but to love. So you don't love from an empty place, right? You don't love from an empty jar. It's really about that living water that is overflowing, coming out from your heart, and say, how can I love more? How can I be more gentle in these aspects? And man, I can tell you, it's not an easy thing to do. I'm still practicing it. I'm still doing it. I still try to live in it. But it's really about that constant giving of love. And I can tell you, if the posture of your heart is not right, and the moment you want to give to get, you're going to be run out of stamina. So you need to find a place where you feel belong, a support system where you feel love, and the ability to know that you are loved, and that's where you have the ability to love. And I learned this, first of all, I recognize that I need to love myself. And I learned to love myself for me to love others. And that's very true, as cliche as it sounds.
Yeah, so which means essentially it all stems from the ability to actually care for ourselves first, like to actually appreciate ourselves. Because you see, the notion of having an overfilling, cup, overfilling heart.
Right, right.
The question now is, how the hell do we get there? Because, like you say, it's difficult. And so I will presume like a lot of these people, when they listen to this and they don't actually buy into our concepts of service leadership or the possibility of living life and doing what we love, and feeling so much gratitude and just so much to be able to give. A lot of these people might not be able to understand where does this mindset come from, and how do we even have this ideas or concept. How would you respond to that?
Um, well, there are too many examples to give in. But I just would like to pick one, right? Or one or two, if I may. So during lockdown or MCO, right? Or they call it movement control order, that's happening in Malaysia for the last couple of months, is that we can't go out, right? We can't leave our home space. We can't leave the space, right? We are being confined and being quarantined and all that. So I ordered food online, via GrabFood, Foodpanda, and all that. And when you are mentally aware, these people breathe through rains, right? Tons of order every single day, and yet it's during Ramadan season, and they come and fulfill the work so that you can eat, so that you can fill in your stomach and fix your crave, right? Your cravings and whatnot. And you come from a notion and a place whereby you think for them and say, hey, look, heck, where does the source of energy of these people coming from? They don't eat throughout the day. They ride the bikes under the hot sun, under a hot scorching sun, breathe through heavy rains and thunder and storm, and they get to you and they smile and look at you and say, hey, look, Felix, this is your food. To you, it may be just a food. To you, it may be just 20 ringgit food or 30 ringgit if you may. But to them, it's their living. To them, it's about them serving you, right? And that alone inspired me. How can these people, coming from a completely different background, coming from a totally different place or an opportunity that they did not have, and yet they are able to serve and do that for you. And from that alone, it inspired me. One of the days I bought 2 or 3 dozens of donuts and give away to people in the concierge, to the guards and all that. And when I do that, it's not because I want to feel good, but I do that because I understand there are sacrifices in this nation, in this country, to serve. That these people stand 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, without sitting, minimal food and drinks, taking care of you, taking care of the place, make sure the security is in place, things like that. And sometimes you do take that for granted. So it's really about being mentally aware of things surrounds you, will give you enough motivation to really say, hey, look, I want to give. I'm so blessed, right? And it's not about, yes, you are right. It's really about taking care of yourself, your well-being and all that. But again, if these things are happening around you on a daily basis, almost an hourly basis, then you realize that this world is so much bigger than yourself, so much bigger than you and I. It's really about God there and give. It's really about God there and serve. And personally, it touched me so much because, again, I don't live in this world for me. I live in this world for them. So it's really about that sort of giving.
It's
that sort of serving.
it's
Yep.
amazing that you are telling me this coming from. I'm sorry, you are very. Can I mention your age?
Yeah, please, please. Yeah,
To me,
27 actually.
oh sorry, 20. Oh,
Yeah,
27.
yeah, yeah. I'm 27. Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
27. Amazing. Sorry, because the other day somebody else I spoke to was 23. It's amazing how the world is just
sure.
you're having so many incredible minds. So coming back to what I said just now, in terms of how somebody asked the question of how they surround themselves with materials that they are reading all this positive stuff, they are doing all these like self-healing or whatever, but they still wake up every day
Sure.
feeling worried, feeling anxiety, just feeling bad about themselves. And Neil Donald Walsh, this author of Conversations with God, said exactly what you're saying. Your life is
Yep.
not about you.
Yep.
Your life, reiterating what you said, Felix, is
Yep.
the world around you, the people,
Yep.
the
Yep.
external environment. And this is for me, when I hear from your perspective, to me it's interesting enough, like an eye opener, because like you say, I took for granted the things like the people around us, the concierge, and typically I don't I don't mistreat them or anything, but
Sure.
we're so caught up with our own problems that we
Yes.
don't we don't see these things.
Yep. Yep.
That's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
The last question before we probably will end this thing, right? Coming back to COVID-19 and the quarantine, would you say it's because of your business model that's helping you thrive? Would you say that you are in a better position business wise? Are you okay with elaborating this a little bit more, where you are with it? And does that put your business in an advantage? Having the concept,
Sure.
yeah,
Sure. I give you a bit of context. So pre-MCO, we probably were about 6 people, 6-man team.
yeah,
And by early February, we were saying, hey, look, we need to start recruiting more. We need to start hiring more. We need to start putting these people together who share the same mission and all that. But again, I'm very blessed, right? Because right now, we do have like around 23 people under our payroll. And that's within a period of like 2.5, 3 months time. And those are like during COVID season, right?
literally
And
within COVID.
yes,
That's
yes,
incredible.
we do like an interview live on Zoom and Google Meet.
That's
So
incredible.
so so what we did differently, and why will I say that we were very blessed? Because those were the time that people laying off, companies laying off people. Those were the time that desperate people look for jobs. Those were the time that like, hey, like there were so many opportunities out there actually, if you come to think about it. So to answer to your questions, does business model helps? I would say yes and no. It really, again, so it's really about how do you humble down and renegotiate the deals that you had in the past, so that right now you have a better payment term. Right now you understand each other, but you want to help each other as well. So there is no point to bring a disagreement onto the table, but really just about, hey, how can we make this better? You and I coming to a better term due to this season, right? That's number one. Number two, why do we hire so much? So it's because these are a bunch of talents. These are a bunch of incredibly smarter people than I am. Smart, hardworking, never say no, whack. They say, hey, look, I want to go out there and conquer. These are the type of people that we look for. And they lost their job. And it's very unfortunate for them. But again, to them, they may feel that, hey, maybe this could be a sort of unfortunate series in their life, but to us it's like, hey, come and join us. So you may say it's a blessing in disguise. But again, I would say the ability to be nimble, the ability to thrive, to say never say no, to really go out there and like, when you love what you do, when you love your spouse, when you love your son, and when you love your daughter, despite of the seasons that you are in, despite of difficulties that you are in, you are there and provide. you're out there and go all the way out. So it's really about having that inner man, inner fighter spirit in you that like, hey, I want to go out and like kill this man. I want to go out and like dominate this market, man. Like it's really coming from that. And again, we are very blessed. Nothing strategically at all. Nothing strategic here. It's really about wise planning. Talk to your mentors if you have, and take a bit of that courage. Take a bit of risk because you are doing things you love. And there's always a risk with love, right? Trust me, Jess, there's always a things like risk in love, you know. So just go out there and do it.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Go out there and fight, you know. Yes. Just go out there and like really serve.
Is there anything else you would like to share with somebody who might be through challenging times or just not feeling great about their lives and themselves?
Take some time off. Take some time off. Take some time off to really just absorb in and be consciously aware of things, you know, surrounds you. Be grateful about even little things that you know, you still have the food on the table. You still have, you know, your parents to thank for. You still have your friends who are there for you, right? Just take some time off, be grateful, and it's the best time, if you may, to actually discover what you truly love and go for that. It could be new employment, it could be new opportunity. I know some people who were baking during those times, and right now actually registering a full-time business and making more than they earn in their employment. There are people like that. So it's really about taking that opportunity and knowing that you feel blessed and grateful. Everything else is a blessing in disguise already. Yeah.
Felix, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you so much.
So much for sharing so many amazing things that I think a lot of people find useful.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.